What's up, guys? So over the next week, I'm gonna be slowly working on the car. So I got some new knuckles for the car from HEYMAN Knuckles. I got some Cusco top hats for the front coilovers, which I'm only using the bottom part. I'm basically just robbing parts from them. The bottom half is going to go on my orange planning top hats that I actually ordered, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. I got some spherical bushings for the top of my coilovers as well, which I'll kind of show you what they do and the purpose behind them. And I got a new steering U-joint as well as intermediate shaft that's welded to it because my steering U-joint is absolutely trashed. I'll have John input the video right here. So as you can see, my steering U-joint is completely dead. There's nothing left to it. The bearings are gone. I think the issue I was having was my intermediate shaft was falling down no matter how much I tightened it down. And basically it just kept hitting the bushings, and as I was driving it got worse and worse at the last event to where my intermediate shaft and my steering U-joint was rubbing up against my header, which was, I'm not putting it on there, but that was causing some of the issues that I was having at the last drift event. I'm still learning, I still suck, I get that. But that definitely didn't help the case at all. So that's what I'm going to be working on this week. So the Corolla gets some new suspension parts that should hopefully improve it massively while driving. And let me show you the parts. So as you can see, I kind of have a plethora of parts. Not really, but kind of really. So this is my new steering U-joint and intermediate shaft that I was talking about. So it's the same steering U-joint that I got from, or that I put on the car roughly like a year and a half ago. That steering U-joint is toast, but I think this intermediate shaft was from T3, the one that's on the car currently, and it was destroying the bushings down in there. This one is actually welded on, which is really nice because I think I'm gonna have to cut this whole dog ear off right there in order to clear my header in the first place, because my header's for a right-hand drive car. It was never meant to go in this car, but I'm making it work, and it's a cool old TRD like N2 header. The next thing I ordered, I actually got these a while back. So they're Cusco top hats for the car, but as you can see, they're only the top hat now at this point. I actually robbed this whole slider bottom part to go on these top hats, which are from Orange Planning. So you may be looking at this a little bit confused on what's going on. So with this, I'm actually able to adjust my caster as well as my camber as well, but I can do both. So typically on a coilover, you can only go, like if here's the wheel, you can only go negative camber or positive camber. But these, I should be able to go like negative camber and push the wheel back or pull it forward in order to get my caster down as well to help out with that. Now I may run into issues with this of needing to get new tension rods, adjustable ones, but we'll see how these work out. For the time being, I'm just gonna put them in the stock location. The reason why I'm going to put them in the stock location is because I got some knuckles from HEYMAN. So the process of these is you basically send them in your knuckles. So I sent them in my power steering knuckles, which they're typically longer than the non-power steering knuckles. And basically they just cut and re-weld them. So I'm hoping that this should give the car a little bit more angle and make the car drive a little bit smoother as well. So that's going to be a huge improvement, which I'll put tape down on the ground before I'll put tape down on the ground before I install them, and we can do a comparison of the angle before and after doing the knuckles. That way we have an idea of how many degrees of angle I actually got. So a big reason too for these top hats, and the reason why I'm going to put them stock, is because with these new knuckles, I may run into issues with the wheel hitting the wheel well. So if that's the case, I may have to make some more adjustments on here, or buy the lower tension rods in order to space everything out, or I may have to put on a wheel spacer. We're going to kind of see how that one goes. So these are the spherical bushings I was talking about that are going to go on the front coilovers. So these may look a little odd. So basically what happens is that the top of your coilover, right underneath the top hat, basically this bottom section right here this guy right here will sit on top of this bushing more or less. So whenever you're driving and you're turning your steering wheel, this guy, the whole coilover has to rotate. And what this does is it separates the top and the bottom of the coilover, touching your top hat. And there's actually little roller bearings in here that make it a lot easier, and it's a lot smoother turning the steering wheel instead of it just being one solid piece or something just sitting directly on there. So I currently have T3 spherical bushings. I'm assuming that's what these are called. I'll have to look it back up again. I currently have T3 ones, but they're pretty much shot. They were from a previous car and that I robbed from. I don't know how old they were, but they're pretty crusty at this point. So I went ahead and I got some new ones from Orange Planing as well while I grabbed this top hats. So I'll be pretty excited to see how lighter the front end feels with this and how much easier it is to turn. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started working on the car. I'm gonna go ahead and get it jacked up, get the wheels ripped off, and we'll go from there. Cool, so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update before I go any further with the car. So I kind of did some light looking at it. The car was already jacked up in there, so it's not going to be a perfect number or representation. But, so the straight line right there, that's my wheel straight. And then this line down here, that's actually my lead wheel. So that's if the wheel's turned all the way this way. And that line is my trailing wheel. So I kind of did some rough math and used a protractor kind of roughly for all this, which granted it's not going to be perfect. But it looks like roughly on my lead wheel, so this line down here, I'm getting about 45 degrees of angle. And on my trailing, I'm getting roughly around 40. So we'll see what kind of improvement the HEYMAN Knuckles do, if they make any kind of improvement. I'm sure they will. It probably won't be drastic. It is an old Corolla. So we'll kind of see what happens, but on to the next thing. I'm guessing like 5 to 10 degrees possibly, but we'll kind of see. It is an old Corolla. They're not meant to have a lot of angle. I'm pretty surprised that I actually already have that much angle in the car. That kind of shocked me a little bit. I thought it was gonna be a lot less angle. But anyway, with that being said, and we kind of have a general idea of what the angle is in the car currently with just power steering knuckles, we're on to the next thing. Okay, so the passenger side decided to be a pain, and it already basically fell off of the RCAs that I have. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip off the passenger side coilover real quick before taking off the tie rod, or just unbolting it like you saw in the previous little clip. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock that out. I'm just gonna lay him out, and then I'll come back and I'll take off the tie rod nut. That way I can go ahead and take off the knuckle and everything as well. Okay, so I got the coilover off on that side. As you can tell, it's not very fun. I'm trying not to disconnect my brakes that way I don't have to deal with bleeding them. So the coilover is currently sitting on basically like three like 2x4 chunks of cedar wood. That's just where it's gonna sit, and I'm gonna try to work on it that whole way through. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off that tie rod nut, get the tie rod disconnected from the knuckle, try to change out the knuckle, and then start working on the top hat stuff. I gotta look back up the orange painting plates, and I just have to make sure which orientation these go to double check before installing them, as well as what some of these bolt holes are for, just to double check mostly, and just to be careful, and that way I don't have to take this back apart to put it back on kind of thing. I'd rather do this once and be done. And if I ever have to adjust the orange planing top hats with all the adjustability I have, I can just push down on that lower control arm whenever I undo the top hat bolts, and I can kind of rotate things a little bit to make it a little bit easier whenever I do it that way. But for right now, I just want to get it fitted up in the car and have everything set up and good to go. That way I can make sure I don't have any clearance issues with the new knuckles as well. Because if I have any clearance issues, then I believe I have 5mm spacers, and I'm hoping that I don't have to use any spacers. If I do have to use any, I'm hoping that the 5mm are going to be enough to keep from rubbing on my inner fender wells from lock to lock. But we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and get that tie rod nut off, get the tie rod disconnected from the knuckle, and then go ahead and replace the knuckle with the new HEYMAN Knuckles. So I got the knuckle off, as y'all saw that. I got everything detached from the passenger side, so I'm gonna go ahead and fully do the passenger side, and then I'll work on the driver's side. The driver's side I already know is gonna be a pain. The tie rod never wants to come out of that knuckle. It's gonna be a battle. I really don't wanna buy new tie rods because my tie rods are still good, so I'm gonna have to try to figure out a way to basically beat it out like you saw me do for the passenger side. We'll kind of play it by ear, and maybe I can try to get some kind of contraption to press it out maybe. Maybe I can jimmy rig up like a harmonic balancer or something to kind of push it through. I don't think I have a bearing press. So with drifting with the Corolla, most people typically go from non-powered knuckles to power steering knuckles while still using a non-powered rack. Here is a power steering knuckle from an AE86 Toyota Corolla. So, as you can tell, it's pretty long, it's pretty beefy. These guys are pretty stout. Typically, you don't have any issues with these. And here is a knuckle from HEYMAN. So, to get a comparison of how much shorter the cut knuckle is from HEYMAN, I'll match them up real quick. So these are pretty much matched up now. You can see the size difference. This one's the HEYMAN, this one's the power steering knuckle. So I have the bolt holes almost lined up, but you can see there's the bolt hole on that side. There's roughly about that much is the difference in the knuckles. So it's gonna give me a good amount of more angle for sure. I'm definitely gonna be excited to see the improvements I get from the knuckles themselves. I'm definitely thinking now that we're probably gonna have to use a spacer. I'm really hoping not. I had a little bit of room, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch before rubbing, but we'll kind of see what happens. But enough talking, let's get this HEYMAN knuckle slapped on there. So as you saw in the last little time lapse, I left the tie rod off. My reasoning behind that is I think it's going to be a lot harder to get the whole coilover as a whole back onto this knuckle with my RCAs if I have that tie rod hooked up. So I'm going to keep that tie rod unhooked because I'm already going to have to do an alignment on the front end anyway with these new knuckles. So my alignment's going to be fucked from the get-go. So I think it's going to be easier for me to get this whole setup sat back on here without a tie rod pulling the knuckle this way or that way, because I can pull the knuckle however which way I want now at this point without any tension, and I can get the coilover to sit on there properly. So I think that's going to be the plan.
Like the cool blue light like the cool blue light, like the cool blue light.
Now that we got that all taken off, we got the top hat off the coilover, we got the already bearings that were currently on there from T3 off, and we got the springs off. It's going to be the next step of the process, which is preparing the top hat to go on from Orange Planning. Before I do that though, the part that's even cooler that we're going to put on is a new bearing top. So opening this guy up, you see this is just a metal hat, and there's an actual bearing in there, a sealed bearing. Now, this guy rolls with my finger, so whenever the weight's on there, this guy is gonna rotate very easily and very smoothly. Plus that just sounds so good. But, so this part is going to go on top of my coilover currently above the spring. So this is gonna sit on top of the spring, and then this top hat plate will actually sit right here. So this guy is gonna rotate on top of that. So to show you guys why I wanted to get this in the first place, not only because it's gonna rotate very nicely and easily, is I actually have some rollers currently from T3. And to show you the difference between T3 and, well, Orange Planning, not to hate on T3, I have a lot of their parts. This bearing isn't sealed. You can, I don't know if you can pick it up here. All that's inside of this is, if you can kind of see it, let me see if I can get this guy to focus. All that's inside of it is just some roller bearings, which, no hate, it works, but it's not sealed, it's not the greatest. You can look at this already, and since it's not sealed, it's already starting to rust. The bottom side is okay, but you can see rust forming, and the top is just not great. And I don't know if y'all could hear that, but just the graininess of it. And I guess maybe if you were to take care of this and clean it and then re-grease it every once in a while, it would have lasted a lot longer. Granted, I don't know how long these front coilovers have been on there. I got this off the brown card that I parted out for myself, and that's the suspension that was on there. Yeah, I took the roller bearing out. You can kind of see the back of it. We're gonna be swapping over to the Orange Planning roller bearing. So as you can tell, it's gonna be a lot better. So instead of this grainy, grimy rubbing whenever I'm driving, I'm going to end up having smoothness. And the best part is it's a sealed bearing. So even if my suspension separates whenever I'm driving, if I drop a wheel or something, there's not gonna be dirt and dust getting inside the bearing, which is so genius from Orange Planning doing this. And the best part is too, I'm looking at this, I see the serial number for the part number for this bearing. So in reality, if I wanted to, in a couple of years, if I wanted to replace this bearing, I could basically just order one from Japan. Or I could just hit up Orange Planning and be like, hey, could I buy a bearing, basically? And I'm pretty sure he would. He's a really cool guy. He makes all these parts for his car, which is so cool because he's making parts for his car that he later develops into parts for customers that people can use because he's so happy with how they turned out. But anyway, that's enough talking. Let's go ahead and slap this guy on. I forgot he did this. So with this part, or these top hats, you're using Cusco bottom parts. If you happen to lose that Cusco bottom part, since he already manufactured his car for it, Cusco comes with these little tiny metal rings, these spacers. But if you lose these spacers, it's not a big deal, because if you order these if you order these little bearings, these roller bearings from him, the top part of it is already raised to match the same height as these spacers from Cusco. So you don't even have to worry about that. You can lose these and just throw these out the door, and you have this already here. That's so cool to me. But, okay, enough talking and being in awe. Getting back to work. I'm gonna pull up his webpage. I'm gonna figure out what orientation this guy is technically supposed to be in. That way I can figure out. I'm gonna go ahead and get him lined up and tightened down to where he needs to be, so this guy's good and set. And then I'm gonna slap the coilover back on. I'm actually really excited for this, and I'm sorry for the long talking here in this little part. Oh yeah.
Like the cool blue light.
What's up, guys? So I know I kind of skipped a step. I had to have my dad help me out and get everything all hooked up because it was a pain to get it up onto the RCAs with the knuckles. But here's the finished product on this side. I already got everything all installed. That nice shiny billet aluminum. And I got this side set up. So he's back on there. I still don't have the tie rod put on yet, so that's not a big deal. Because the knuckle itself is still just chilling. Also, just from pushing this wheel, night and day difference already from the from that guy. Okay, so as you saw, that was a lot of clips of me just trying to get that tie rod out. That thing was seized in there. I messed up the bushing a little bit, so I'm gonna have to order some tie rod ends. The original plan was not to mess up the tie rod end. The reason why, or the outer tie rod, was because they're kind of expensive. To get a set of two, it's like $100 or something. $100 if not more. I've seen some from like 160. So I may try to see if somebody has a set of OEM ones, or I'll have to order some expensive ones. But it's out, thankfully. And I'm gonna take a look at the bushing, or that little rubber boot. Maybe that rubber boot can be replaced. I know some of them you can, some of them you can't. I'm gonna check it out, and maybe it's not too damaged, and maybe I could reuse it. I just have to see. It's out now, so we can proceed with doing the driver's side. Thank God. I'm like drenched in sweat after doing that. the front coilover back on and it's bolted back down, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it all back together. It was a lot easier trying to pick it up and put it into place without the top hat and I guess the spring really in place. So I did it that way, but I did take it apart this way. So I'm just gonna feed the spring and everything else back down through this way, and then I'll slide the top hat in from underneath, and we'll go ahead and we'll get everything bolted back down. That way the car's done except for tie rods, which I already ordered, and they should be here hopefully Wednesday or Thursday. What's up everyone? So today we are going to be installing the steering U-joint shaft, as well as I'm really hoping that my tie rods come in today in the mail. If they do, then I should be able to possibly wrap up the car tonight. So my steering shaft slash U-joint, this guy. So the one currently in the car, the U-joint itself is completely blown out. So that's what we're gonna work on today. I'm gonna get that one swapped over. I'm gonna have to do some modifying on this one as well as that I had to do like on my previous one. I have to cut this guy right here. I have to cut this guy off. Luckily, the one that I bought this time, this one is actually welded together. So I won't have to worry about them separating or it being a safety issue that I am cutting that. But so I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut that and grind that down. That way it clears my header and I don't have to worry about any issues there. But that's the game plan for today. I'm hoping that the shaft itself will fit inside and there won't be any issues with it being too loose. If there is, then I'll have to run to town and go buy like this rubber maker. If I have to buy it, I'll explain it and I'll kind of show you guys what I had to do and how it works. I had to do it on my other steering shaft that I had because it was a little loose in the coupler basically. So it caused like an 1/8 inch of slop in the steering wheel. And doing that rubber mixture or adhesive coating or whatever, that took out that slop. So it was a lot more responsive after I put that stuff in there. So anyway, let's get to it. So this is gonna be a little hard to film due to me not wanting to take off my header. I'm being a little bit lazy, but I'm gonna show you guys what I'm gonna do and then I'm gonna go ahead and knock it out. So I gotta loosen up that bolt down there. It's a 13, and then this is what I was talking about whenever I had to cut and modify it. I had to shave that whole part off, which I'm gonna do on the other side as well. But so I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that guy up. I'll show you guys how I centered my steering wheel. That way I know that my rack is centered before I pull this off, and we can go ahead and try to get this guy slid up and pulled off of here. So I was able to get that bottom bolt out and I wiggled it just a little bit, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be able to get this disconnected. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how you can set your rack before you pull like your steering U-joint. That way you don't have to reset your rack before you put everything back together. So what you're gonna wanna do is basically take your steering wheel, and it doesn't matter which direction you start with, just go all the way to lock with it. Now that you have this guy all the way at lock, you take this and you'll go ahead and go. So you have your starting point. I'm just going based off of that. Spin him. That's 1 full rotation. 2, 3, 4, and then about to right there. So I know it takes about 4 and I don't know, just say a quarter to be easy, full rotations from lock to lock. So I'll split the difference, and I'm just gonna go centered, and I'm gonna go 1, 2. So just kind of make sure that your steering wheel is centered wherever you want, and that's how you center your rack before pulling the steering U-joint. So I managed to get the steering shaft off, which is on this side, and compared it to the new one. They're roughly the same length. It may be a hair longer, but the good benefit is, say if I pull this one off the table, it doesn't move. It's still tight and it's still good on both angles because it's a new U-joint. This one, on the other hand, as you can already see, actually, if you look close up to it, you can see all the play. Now if this guy's out, I just gotta shave this other one right there to look like that guy, that way he doesn't hit my header. And then I can go ahead and paint him to keep him from rusting as much as possible and shove him back in the car. So I got the new steering shaft grinded down, as you can see. I grinded down quite a bit more than the previous one, but I didn't grind this one down as much due to still needing that bolt for the clamping force to keep this rod in. Since this one's welded, I don't have to worry about it as much. I know it looks really nasty. I went through it with the grinder to make sure that there was no rough spots that you can cut your finger and cut yourself on with. I'm playing with one right now. I'll be sure to file that off. But overall, it's got the clamping force. I don't need to worry. This whole back side is welded. And I'm gonna paint over this side as well. There's some weld up there as well that I may have cut through. At the end of the day, it's gonna hold and it's gonna do a lot better than this one, especially with this floppy U-joint. So let's get this guy painted up real quick, and I'm gonna bring him back inside. I'm gonna set him down and I'm gonna let it sit overnight, and I'm gonna call it a night for today. I did get my tie rods in, so luckily, Sadie, what are you doing? What's wrong? You get something in your foot? Yes. You get something in your foot? Uh-huh. So, Sadie's gonna help out. So I did get my new tie rod. So I did get my new tie rods in, so I'll be able to replace this guy as well. I'm looking at doing that probably Sunday, since I'm going out of town tomorrow, and I can knock that out. So the hopes are the car will be back on the ground running and driving. Well, it runs, but the car will be back to driving again by Sunday. I should be able to finish everything up. All I have left to do is to stab that steering shaft back in once he's painted and dried up. Stab him in, just bolt him down, and that's the end of the day. I'm gonna put a little bit of grease up here just so it keeps it a little bit better sealed, and put this boot back on and put the tie rods on and go ahead and do an alignment. And then once the alignment's done, the car's done, so I can take it for a drive hopefully Sunday. And the plan is to go see John and take him the footage. And plan is to go see John, take him the footage, and that way we can go ahead and edit the video together and we can get it up. I know it's been a little bit of a... Actually, John just cut where I started rambling, I guess, because it needs to be more cinematic shots. I don't know. We can do an outro later. Anyway, bye, John. Alright, so I got the steering shaft painted. It dried overnight, and it should be ready to go and be installed. So I'm going to go ahead and put that guy in. I'm going to add some grease to the shaft right here. That way it's a little bit tighter whenever I'm pushing it in, and that way I don't have to worry about anything rusting, and it's easier to pull out whenever I have to remove it one day. This little boot is an OEM boot, which will help keep the grease in. So let's go ahead and do that, get that guy installed, and then we can start working on our tie rods since I got all my tie rods in. So go ahead and change out my tie rods, get the car on the ground, do an alignment, and then hopefully the car should be drivable again. So I went to go install the steering shaft, and I have it stabbed in there all the way with some grease. The issue that I'm running into now is my subframe is a little too high up in order to get the actual U-joint side started. And this guy's already maxed out going into the coupler that it has. Here, I can try to give a better angle. So this is the coupler on the car side. It's actually attached to my steering wheel, the steering column. The shaft is already up as high as it can go, but it's kicked at a bit of an angle so I can't get the steering U-joint. So the steering U-joint is a little too low in order for me to get everything started on the little steering shaft for my actual rack. So what I'm gonna have to do now is, which I was trying to avoid, I'm gonna have to loosen the nuts on both sides that mount my front subframe to the car. And what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to loosen up this side, let it hang a little bit, and then come over here and loosen this side. That way everything actually drops down. And then I should be able to get the U-joint actually stabbed onto the rack. Once I get the steering U-joint stabbed onto the shaft that's on the rack, then I can go ahead and tighten this side and this side back up, bringing my subframe all the way mounted back up. And then I can go ahead and come back up here, tighten down my steering U-joint, and get the steering shaft fully situated and done. So I finally got the new steering shaft stabbed in place. It was a bit of a pain in the ass to do. I basically had to get this side fully disengaged. I had to take out the top bolt, and that bolt's just sitting there. There's no nut on it. And then I had to, on this side, loosen them until there was like very any threads left in the nut, but I have my jack here just in case, holding it all up. But I was able to get it stabbed in place, thankfully, and I got it all set. So now I'm gonna go ahead and raise my subframe back up, get these bolts tightened back down on both sides. That way my subframe is fully seated. The steering shaft will be done. Once that's all done, then I can start moving on to my tie rods and getting the front end aligned and getting the car back on the ground. So I got the old tie rod off, kinda running into a slight issue here. So I think with my new knuckles that I put on, looking at it, in order to hook up the tie rod on the inner tie rod and have it connected over here, just to have it hook up, my wheel's angled like that. So might be running into an issue that I actually need extended outer tie rods. So this should be interesting. I'm gonna see if I can adjust this lollipop at all. If I'm able to, what I may do is I'm gonna adjust it out, and if there's no way for me to crimp it, or if it seems sketchy, I'm gonna take it to John's and see if I can weld them up. Because this one, if you actually look at it, has been welded. So I figured I can at least give it a shot on this one. Worst case, I'm actually gonna have to spend the $200 and get like the Megan Racing or the T3 extended outer tie rods. Before I make that decision, let me see if I can fix this lollipop on the tie rod. If not, I'm gonna have to spend the money. I really don't want to, but if I have to, I have to. The only issue is I just don't know how much longer of extended tie rods I need to order. It looks like roughly over an inch. And that's what worries me a little bit, that I'm gonna run into the issue, I'm gonna have to have like custom ones. Because I believe I can buy like extended 15 to 25, but I'll have to look. I may have to order, because I believe Orange Planning actually has like 40 millimeter extended tie rods. So that may have to be the route I have to go, which if that's the case, then the car has to sit here for roughly another 2 weeks. But if I have to do that, I have to do that. I'll go ahead and I'll order 2 sets of it while I'm at it. Or I'll order one. If it works and it's good, then I'll order another set so I have a backup set. But enough talking about that. Let me see if I can get this fixed first before I start jumping to more conclusions. Okay, so crisis averted on the new tie rods. I was an idiot. Whenever I was messing with my steering wheel, I never re-centered my steering wheel after I messed with it, showing y'all how easy it was to turn. So my inner tie rod was like 3/4 of the way that way, which of course that makes sense on why this new outer tie rod wouldn't fit. Once I re-centered my wheel, the outer tie rod goes on easy now and it has plenty of threads. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get the other side swapped on, and I can video and show you guys that side. And then I can go ahead and get this car on the ground, get everything tightened down, and then we can start doing alignment on the car. And then we can check how much more angle I got from the HEYMAN Knuckles compared to the OEM power steering knuckles. Okay, so I got this tie rod on now, the passenger side. That's what y'all just watched me do. So before I go ahead and tighten down the nut and put the keeper pin in, or the cotter pin, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm going to count the threads that I have on this side, and then go ahead and count the sides that I have on the driver's side. And since the driver's side is already fully tightened down, I'm just going to adjust whatever this passenger side is to whatever the driver's side is. That way I know whenever I start to do an alignment, they're equal on both sides. That way I have a good base to go off of whenever I'm doing an alignment to figure out my toe in and toe out. Okay, so I got the outer tie rods tightened down to where they need to be, and then I went ahead and I got my sway bar end links hooked back up, as you can see right there. I technically have no idea how they're supposed to go on. They all fell out whenever I was taking the car apart, and I just kind of took a shot in the dark on how they're supposed to go together. Oh well, I'll do some research and figure it out later. But tie rods are on both sides. Sway bar is now hooked up on both sides. As you can see, they're ready to go. So the next plan of attack is I'm going to get the wheels mounted back on. Once the wheels are mounted back on, then I can go ahead and tighten everything down. I want to check to make sure that nothing is going to hit or rub at full lock at first while the car's still in the air. Then I can go ahead and lower the car down, and I can have my dad give me a hand doing the alignment. And once the alignment is done, the car will be drivable again. Unfortunately, y'all probably heard it earlier, it was raining pretty bad outside, and so I don't know if I'm going to be able to drive the car today or not. We'll kind of take a look and see how wet the roads are. I just don't like driving in rain in general, but either way, let's get to it. Let's get the wheels mounted, and let's get the car back on the ground.
Stereophonic sound for the home is recorded on 2 separate tracks. each one giving special emphasis to certain sections of the orchestra, as heard from those positions. Now, when played back simultaneously on two separate systems, the sounds are blended together to achieve a new dimension in sound, impossible to obtain in a monaural recording.
So I got the wheels back on, and I went ahead and I got the alignment done with my dad. So the car now has an 1/8 inch of toe out in the front, which is exactly what I wanted. The only thing I have left to do is to tighten the tie rod little coupler on this guy, and then I can go ahead and close the hood and give it a drive. I think I'm gonna try to take it over to John's house. That way I can drop over this footage and we can start recording together. So, but let's go ahead and get this guy tightened. I almost forgot to give you guys the view of the new angle that we got from out of the Knuckles. So, real quick. Wheel centered. So full lock on this side. May have lost a little bit. It's a little hard to tell because my tape lines weren't the best from the beginning. So. Plus the wheel is moved, so let's just call it it stays where it was. Let's check the outside. John, I'm pretty sure you're calling me right now. I'll answer in a bit. So full lock now with this guy. As you can tell, we got way more angle now. So this is going to help out massively for the leading wheel. Damn. Anyway. Yeah, what's up?
Oh, good, you're alive.
Why did you think I was dead?
Because you were like, oh, I have this one thing to do on the car and I'll be done. So in my head, I'm like, okay, he's going to be getting the car down soon. And I was like, fuck, he hasn't replied like in any different chat in hours. The car fell on him and his parents had it back when he's dead in the shop.
Jesus, I hope you know I just filmed all that.
Good.
No, I literally just finished the car. I have to put the hood down and then that's basically it.
Yeah.
So.
Alright, good.
Do you still want me to come over?
Yeah, I edit everything.
Alright guys, so that's going to be the it for... Alright everyone, so that's going to be the end of today's video. That's basically it. That's all I have for the car right now is got everything back together. My angle is a little bit better on the leading wheel compared to the trailing now. We'll kind of see, but overall I'm pretty happy in general just getting everything put up together and didn't have any major issues thankfully. But that's going to be it for this one. If you liked the video, please let us know what you liked about it. If you didn't like it, let us know what we can improve. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know anything that y'all guys want to see. Follow us on TikTok. It should just be Team Sabi. It's the same logo as the YouTube as well, so go give us a follow on there. I'm gonna run over to John's house now so that way I can drop off the footage and me and him can go ahead and edit this video and get it uploaded for you guys, hopefully by tomorrow. And then we're gonna slowly try to put out a little bit more content. I know there's kind of been a dead zone here for the past 2 weeks-ish. We kind of ran into some snags with delivery of items and things going on and whatnot, so we haven't really had a chance to film, but we're working on it. We're gonna try to put out still weekly videos if possible, if not every other week videos, and we're gonna try to make them a little bit more, I guess you could say, cinematic. Basically me talking less, so which is not what I'm doing now, but trying to film more of what we're doing instead of like talking more. But anyway, let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. I think maybe the next video will be about John's car or his moped. One of the two. We're hoping to get the moped. done pretty soon, as well as his car running and driving. We found out what happened in the last video, which I don't know if he ever posted, but he had some wiring issues going on. But anyway, John, you can cut as much of this as you want out. I'm basically just rambling at this point, but alright guys, see you later.
So beg and plead, but when you come over tonight, don't tell me you love me.